All right,
And
thank
your
you,
response to that,
Jason.
I appreciate it.
Is there anyone else on WebEx?
Yes, we have Sydney Brown.
Okay, Sydney.
Go ahead, Sydney.
I'm Sydney's wife. We're both in this with the whole issue with anchored tiny homes. And my name's Kate Brolin. And one of the things I really appreciate you having this, but you know, this is part of the meeting today on the agenda. But one of the things that we have run into, and I hate to say this to the contractors on board, but because we also had a previous issue with another contractor, and I'll just say the protocol or the system of trying to file a complaint I felt was quite arduous. And I work with a lot of paperwork, but I felt like we were almost questioned more than maybe anchored tiny home, or in this case, another person who actually had a fake contractor's license, which we didn't know, but the CSLB, the board, they took so long. They took over a year to get back to us just to tell us on that one, oh no, we can't take this because he never had a license in the first place. So anyway, but the other part of this is how a consumer can be walked through and supported. As I read a lot on the Facebook website for Scam by Anchor, I would read a lot of people who I think were having such a challenge, either trying to get attached onto that bond, which I guess is not going to appear, and the time frame of how long. I mean, I don't understand why the board did not get how bad this was. I mean, I'll just say we were injured long ago, like way back in February, March. And we contacted the board. It took us so long to get this process through. And then finally, the very nice young woman who was helping us, she said, oh my God, now we've had so many calls, you know, she was pushing it through. But I just want to mention that protocol. Don't wait till kind of the shit hits the fan. I mean, I think you need to believe the consumer first. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. With no objections, we'll take like a 15-minute break so we can compile all the suggestions. I appreciate everyone coming, and I know I speak for the whole entire board because I read every document that was sent for this issue. I reviewed every news clip, and I appreciate media for calling this out and putting so many clips, but it distressed me greatly, and I know the rest of the board is distressed greatly by this issue also. So appreciate all the suggestions. We will definitely take those to task, and I'll report back in 15 minutes if that's okay.
And before we go off the record, I just wanted to clarify that you're speaking on behalf of the committee here today. So when you use the word board, it's truly the committee that today is considering these things.
Thank you for that.
And one other note, to the extent folks are considering bankruptcy remedies or considering payments and performance bonds, we as a committee, and I'm sure as a board, strongly recommend you get your own legal counsel. Start with self-help, but go find a lawyer that you trust. Thanks.
All right, we'll adjourn for 15 minutes. We'll reconvene at 2:15. Thank you. Again?
Yes, I am back.
Four more comments.
Are we ready for additional public comments? We still have about 4 more.
Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. We'll reconvene. And again, the committee thanks all the public for showing up. And as stated and corrected by legal, thank you, legal, that it is a committee that's distressed by all that's going on. And again, we appreciate the media for covering this to bring it to light. And we appreciate everyone showing up in person as well as WebEx. So we'll continue, and then we'll end up too, if anybody in the, actually what I'd like to do is summarize everything, and if Registrar Folk would summarize everything that we've heard so far and things that we'll look into, and then we'll continue with WebEx. Registrar Folk.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Barton. I would like to summarize what I have learned from all of you this afternoon, and if it's incorrect, please provide additional information or correct what I understood was said. The first thing we talked a lot about financial laws, and we may need to look at why banks are not requiring escrow accounts today. If you go back 10, 15 years ago, the banks would have an escrow officer. They'd actually go out to the job site. They would look and see if the work was done before they would authorize payment for that work, and you're just not seeing it currently. What financial oversight exists where the banks are, in some situations, maybe paying the contractors directly. I don't know that that happened here, but we see it in other situations where the banks pay the contractor directly, and that puts the consumer at considerable risk if the contractor doesn't do the work. But for perhaps some of the complaints that have been received in this situation, the contractor was paid by a homeowner that did get a loan, the loan proceeds, and was not provided the information they really need to protect themselves and not turning that money over to the contractor, something we want to look at. We will explore recovery funds, look at what other states have, whether that's viable. It probably will require a construction industry meeting. That's a public meeting where we'd get input from the construction industry as to what opposition they would have for a recovery fund. The CSLB is not in the bond business. We're not a surety company. We do require bonds, as I mentioned earlier. We will ask the surety companies to meet with us. We heard a lot about having a bond that would be equivalent to the amount of work that's being done, that would provide a lot of protection. Where would the surety companies fall on that? We do have a direct relationship with surety companies here, although, again, we're not a surety company, but we'll ask them what is their position on increasing surety bonds? What would be the cost for that? We heard there might be a benefit in requiring a specific license for an ADU, so that's something our license examination unit will be asked to consider. We heard a lot about mechanic liens and subcontractors that may be unpaid, puts the consumer at risk when the prime contractor was paid for the work done by the subcontractor or those materials supplied. Consumer could result in a consumer having to pay twice, so that's an issue. I would mention, though, that on the CSLB website, we do have mechanic lien information. The mechanic lien law is in the California Constitution. And I know you have a Facebook page, and I think there's information on our website that could be very helpful if you want to consider that, for your Facebook page, or just so that you're aware of it. We talked about investigations, and our goal is to perform our investigations timely, and just want to emphasize that we appreciate the public and consumers, especially filing complaints so that we can effectively regulate the construction industry. So it's our goal to be professional and to really appreciate a complaint being filed when somebody's been harmed by a contractor. And just in closing, I want to just clarify something I said earlier. I cut off what I think I really needed to emphasize, and that is regarding the payment schedule and an ADU that's on a residential property being considered home improvement. If you look at the CSLB definition of home improvement, it includes all improvement on or adjacent to a dwelling, to a house. That's similar to a swimming pool. It's not directly attached to the house, but it's still considered home improvement. That's why an ADU is considered home improvement. I do think that we need to clarify the definition of home improvement to make it very clear that an ADU is considered home improvement. We had to do that in declared disaster areas. We wanted the reconstruction in those areas to be for those consumers to be protected by the payment restrictions. So we added to the definition of home improvement that it includes reconstruction in declared disaster areas. So that's what we have so far. I know we have some more comments. If there's anything you'd like to add to it or clarify, please do so. And it's back to you, Chair Barton.
Thank you, Registrar Fogg. Back to the WebEx, do we have any comments on the agenda?
Yes. I am unmuting John Arenson. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, if you can just speak close to the mic, that would be good.
All right. Yeah, I like the idea of being a double-edged contractor myself. I hold multiple contractors' licenses and have for decades. I do like that idea because it does bring you closer to home with your particular niche as an expert or a specialist in a given field. My only concern would that be incumbent then upon let's say I'm a general contractor, which I am, and I'm also a C47, which is manufactured home, but now you develop this other niche or this other classification, would I then have to, because I've already been in this industry for almost 40 years, would I then have to qualify for this license as well? I know I had to take a special test for my C47. Not that I would mind. I don't mind doing that at all. In fact, my other question for you folks was, I'm also a licensed real estate broker. I'm a licensed DMV tiny home and park model dealer. And I'm a licensed HCD manufactured home dealer. And in every single one of those fields, every 2 to 4 years, we have to requalify by going through an arduous retraining program. I've yet to see, I've always wondered why the Contractors License Board doesn't place those same demands on its contractors. I definitely think there's a need for contractors, just as there is real estate brokers or anybody else that holds a state license, to get requalified. But I've never, ever seen that, and it's always baffled me.
Well, okay, thank you for that. Anything else on WebEx? Do you have another comment?
Yes, we have Maria and Leo. Your line is unmuted. Go ahead.
This is Leo. I just had a couple points, but I also, John, the gentleman who spoke before me, made a good comment. First, about the bond. So if we do the bond for each ADU, what I think we need to take into consideration is that a bond is something you deal with after something happens, not before something happens. And I think we need to focus a little bit more on preventing rather than dealing with the aftermath. Where my wife and I fell victim to this was the whole fund control. Now that we look back, I'm thinking, why does the contractor have access to this fund control thing? It should be completely separate from the contractor. And I could be wrong. This could be a normal thing. This is something new to us as well. But in any case, my idea was take the fund control factor away from the contractor and give it to a private entity.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have another comment on WebEx?
Yes, we have Ryan. Your line is unmuted.
Hello, my name is Ryan O'Connell, and I represent How to ADU, which is a Facebook community with over 90,000 California homeowners all trying to build ADUs. I think when you guys are considering all this, and it's great that you're taking the complaints seriously of all these homeowners, I would just give a little bit of thought on the framework for how you think about the potential solutions that you're considering. I'd say that the system works well 100+ times a day with the number of ADU permits that are getting entitled and getting built. So we should make sure that the solution we come up with doesn't harm the happy path projects more than it helps the unhappy path projects. I mean, it's a huge tragedy on an individual level, and I want to make things better for the people who got wronged here, but I also want to preserve the industry and regulation in general, like requiring separate licensing or specialized licensing is going to increase the cost, decrease the amount of providers, et cetera. And then the other thing I'd say is whatever solutions you're considering, would those solutions have saved the homeowners in this alleged Anchored situation? Because if Anchored had gone ahead let's assume that, I'll take it off Anchored. If a bad operator wants to get a specialized license or whatever other requirements we put in front of them, or simply operate with the wrong license or unlicensed, they'll still be able to swindle a lot of people. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to help anybody in that situation. Having said that, I find the solutions really interesting. The definition between residential, home improvement, and other classifications is a really good path to go down. I think financial oversight is tough with all the cash deals and HELOCs that happen in this ADU space right now in this economy, but that's another interesting angle. And then in terms of recovery
Your time
funds,
is
I
up.
encourage the CSLB to talk to CalHFA about potentially looking at how they did manage construction escrow for the grant that was administered last year. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your comment. Do we have anyone else on WebEx?
Yes, Mark Allen, unmuted your line. Go ahead.
Were victimized by the Anchor Tiny Home. I have a question for the CSLB, and it may not be directly related to the agenda items, but I think there's an adjacency to it. And my question is, how does the CSLB police bad actors? A contractor who gets a CSLB license, starts a business, they go under, and then, they turn around and open up another business. What is the CSLB doing about ensuring that bad actors don't keep on playing roulette with different licenses?
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Put your information in the chat room, and we'll be sure to get back to you. I know we have,
Yeah, because this is not a dialogue, so get in.
yeah, thank you for that. I know we have officers. In fact, I unfortunately didn't get to see them today. They're graduating enforcement officers that go out and police projects. So thank you for that. Do we have anything else in WebEx?
Yes, we have a N. Rowland. Your line is unmuted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having this meeting. My family, we were all trying to do a wonderful thing for my mother, and we were going in together to build an ADU on our property to take care of her. She's 85 years old, disabled, and we also have a disabled son, and we thought maybe in the future we could, use this small ADU to help others. And I think many of the people who were defrauded here, it's all the same story. And we were paying as per our contract told us to. We trusted our salesmen. We trusted this company. We checked the Better Business Bureau. We checked Yelp. We checked Google. We looked at the Contractors License Board. Everything looked good. I think after losing over $90,000 in this endeavor, we would have appreciated if the CSLB had a very easy step-by-step tip sheet for ordinary folks. Your website is pretty in-depth on many things, but there was nothing there for us really to make this simple. One good example I came up with as I've been listening to all of this is that our contract, apparently, according to y'all today, it was not a proper contract. It seemed like we were paying ahead of schedule. And had we known that this contract was having us pay so much more up front than we were supposed to, we would have never, signed for that. And so my suggestion is, number one, is to have a law that these companies must follow a certain contract, and then make that very plain and clear on your website, that this is what a contract should look like. When you get into, negotiation for this contract, it should show this, this, and this. And we would have appreciated that very much. John also, another speaker earlier, said trainings. I found out after the fact that several of the employees of this company saw the writing on the wall. There should be encouragement for whistleblowers. We would not have paid all of these extra payments had the whistle blown earlier that this company was in trouble and they were spending our money that we were paying them on other things that had nothing to do with our projects. So, and then lastly, I wanted to just mention about a lawyer. You mentioned earlier that we should find a bankruptcy lawyer and talk to a lawyer and
You have 10 seconds.
A lawyer is $5,000. I contacted 2 lawyers and we don't have another $5,000. We had to start our permitting process and pay an extra $5,000 for our permitting. Even though we had already paid for permitting, we had to do it over again. We don't have $5,000 for a retainer.
Your time is up.
So I want to thank you again, and hopefully we all can come to some solutions here.
No, thank you very much for that comment. We were talking about that very issue with Legislative Chief May and myself today. We as a committee and a board need to do more to get the word out there and to protect the consumer. So I really appreciate that comment. Do we have another one on WebEx?
Yes, unmuting line for Beto. User Beto, is your request, we requested your line to be unmuted. Okay, while they're working through that, we have another one, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. You know, I've been listening to all of these cases for, or the comments here for a while here, and I'd like to throw this in as a contribution. We actually had a case with a contractor who warned us after the situation was going bad that the CSLB was a toothless tiger and that, you know, he was going to be able to get around anything we did, which only motivated us to pursue this harder. We actually ended up getting an assembly person involved, and that person actually ended up getting CSLB to reopen our cases after CSLB had closed our cases. They would not reopen all the victims that we had. We had over 85 victims, but they did take on our 3 of us, and one of us, myself, had 2 cases. The damages were over $400,000. We went through the process of going through the CSLB court system, which is a specialized court system where the AG's office represents the CSLB, and we are actually witnesses in the case against the contractor. So it's not something where they're representing us. They're just going against the contractor from CSLB standpoint with the goal of making a recommendation to the courtroom. At the end, we got the license revoked. The problem is over $400,000 of damages were caused, and all he got was a 3-year revocation. We're really not sure, and we don't have any feedback from CSLB why it was only 3 years. You know, and so it's a little frustrating that someone can steal that much money in a fraudulent situation, be found guilty, and have a 3-year revocation. So in essence, all they have to do is pay the $20,000 in court fees, and then they can get their license back in 3 years. This should have been a permanent revocation. And I only mention this because, you know, in the hearing itself, we talked about restitution, and we talked about trying to get this referred to in a criminal case, and we had no help from CSLB on this. I want to caution people to understand that CSLB is a very overwhelmed organization, especially with all the disasters. And I don't think they're spending enough time on individual cases to go after. It's only when things hit the media and go really, really wrong that they have to jump in. And I'm not here to pretend to know all the ins and outs of all of the things that CSLB has to patrol, but I will say that the consumer is the number one most important. There is never a situation where the consumer should have a lien put against their property by a subcontractor they did not hire. They hired the contractor. The subcontractor is that person's problem. You have 10 seconds. We should not be in that situation. Anyway, I would love, you have my email. I would love to get help on what I need to do the restitution and get referred to for the district attorney's office. But more importantly, I just want everyone to note, this is a very overwhelmed system.
Thank you very much for your comment. Do we have another one on WebEx?
Yes, we do. Catherine, your line is unmuted.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay,
Hi.
yeah, if you could speak closer to the mic.
Sure. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Hi there. My name is Catherine Phillips, and my husband's name is Garrett Lamb. We were given this link through Gabriella and Catherine at HPP Cares. We were victims of the multitasker situation going on right now in San Diego and Los Angeles. And I just wanted to kind of point out the obvious, which is obvious, these loans that we've taken out that were signed over immediately to the builders or the companies, and then they collected the money and we never saw them. But the domino effect of that is we bought a house just to build my mother-in-law, who has dementia, a home in our backyard. We moved from LA, moved down here, tore up our whole lives, bought a property big enough for her, and started this process with Multitasker. We took out the loans that they suggested we take, and before they could finish the build, or they never started the build, but before they finished, one of these loans expired, and it was going to have excessive amount of fees on expiration. So we were, suggested by Multitasker to take out a separate loan and pay that loan off. And then, we would take her out of her home that she lives in now, my mother-in-law, and put her in this ADU when it was built. And then we would have rental income from her home. But they never built her ADU. So what we had to do to pay off this loan was refinance the home she was in that she's had for 30 years. Her house payment was $900. And with interest rates today, her house payment is now $3,500. So we've got this elderly woman who's got dementia, whose house payment has tripled, and we have nowhere to put her in order to try to pay the income on this loan we had to pay off before maturity. So I kind of just wanted to point out the domino effect that these construction companies defaulting are having, not just on the outstanding loans, but if you pay off a loan, and where do you get that money from to pay off that loan immediately before this house or ADU is even built? That is causing, I know myself and other people with the Multitasker situation, a lot of other distress and creating a whole nother issue of problems, because now we can't just get the loan company to forgive the loan because we've already paid it off. So how do we go about fixing that issue if we pay off a loan for a property never built?
Thank you for that. Do you have anyone else on WebEx?
Yes, we have Inga Hammond. Your line is unmuted. Inga Hammond, if you could go ahead and unmute your line. Okay, it appears that she dropped off. We have Sydney Brown. Okay, Sydney dropped off too. Amy, oh, there goes Sydney.
I just couldn't find the button, so
Go
I
ahead.
have just a little clarifying that I would like to ask about. The ADUs are considered home improvement. Does that apply to a duplex that you already have on a piece of property, and then you put ADUs onto the property? Is that still considered a home improvement? And maybe you can't answer the question right now, but maybe you could send me in the right direction as to how I can find out more about this. Because we're trying to get insurance, and our insurance company is saying that the ADU is separate from the main house, and we're going through a rigmarole trying to have, because they have separate addresses. So, anyway, it may be off topic, but I just wondered.
No, that's great. Do me a favor, put your contact in the chat, and we'll make sure someone gets back to you in writing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have anyone else in the chat or on WebEx?
Yes, we have Amy Pierce.
Amy, do you have anything on the agenda item?
Yes, sure. Yes, I do. So I have a question I have an issue for consideration. It's recently come to my attention that for all of these individuals that are being victimized by these unlicensed contractors, one of the challenges is that myself and some of my colleagues are finding is that when they go into the court system, that Section 7045 is being used as somewhat of a shield for these unlicensed contractors. And so, I mean, I do think there is a cautionary tale here that even though I think the Contract State Licensing Board is doing the right thing in identifying these unlicensed contractors and citing them, that the cooperation of the district attorney's office and the courts as well is imperative to getting justice for these individuals. And I do think 7045, the way it has been interpreted recently, it is being used to essentially exempt some of these individuals from the licensure requirement under the idea that, you know, that these sorts of installations are either not permanent or that this Section 7045 was intended to exempt them from the licensure. So I do think that this is a risk that that I don't think was as prominent until more recently, because I do think that courts and sometimes juries are disinclined to punish these unlicensed contractors the way the law is designed by the legislature.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have anyone else on WebEx?
Yes, I have Douglas Washburn. Your line is unmuted.
Hello. My comments are about the general procedure of lien warning with respect to suppliers working on behalf of a general contractor. You know, the customer gets a lien warning if they're doing it the correct way through a certified mail and a receipt requested. That's all well and good. You're at least notified that there exists an obligation to ensure that entity gets paid. But there is no legal requirements on the person issuing the lien warning for reporting outstanding balance levels of the account that gets created on behalf of the general contractor to perform the construction with the consumer. I actually had a conversation with the accounts receivable person. They assured me, oh yeah, the GC that you're working with, you don't have to worry. They always pay their amount on time. But there's an awful lot of hoping, I guess, that the general contractor will let you know and act in a good way with respect to paying their bills. But they're really, the accounts receivable person says, oh no, we can't set up an email notification with account paid or what the current balance is on a periodic basis during the project. So I think there should be, if you are allowed to do a lien warning, you should have a legal requirement to also report account balances so the customer has visibility in what's going on and can take corrective action with the general contractor, such as writing the check to both the GC and supplier. I have no way of knowing, how long I have to continue doing that to ensure they get paid if I don't have the amount information of what the obligation with respect to my project is. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just remind everybody on WebEx that we are on agenda item C, comments regarding anchored tiny homes complaints and possible legislative concepts. So we already had the point where we could speak about general comments, but this is specific to the agenda. So do we have anyone else on WebEx?
Yes, we have Vito. We're going to try their line one more time. Go ahead.
Okay, I think I'm muted now.
Yes.
All right, so I too, I guess this whole ordeal, just like a lot of these, a lot of the people making the comments today. I was actually an employee slash former subcontractor for Anchor Tiny Homes, and just like a lot of the homeowners, I'm also in the hole a couple $100,000 for unpaid work. And unfortunately, this isn't the first roundabout that I've had with issues similar to this, and hence that why I'm speaking out today in hopes that some change does happen in the requirements of general contractors or prime contractors hiring subcontractors. I believe that one of the changes that needs to happen is in regards to the bond requirements, whether being upping the existing bond requirements that you have in place now, or requiring performance payment bonds in addition to $25,000. Sometimes is just, I mean, nowadays it doesn't do anything, especially when we go and file a bond and there are other subcontractors claiming a portion of the bond, and the bond company actually, for subcontractors specifically, lowering our claim amount to about half of what the bond claim is. So in my instance, $12,000 for my $200,000 in unpaid work, in addition to the, I don't know, a couple other $1 million worth of claims from other subcontractors. The last conversation I had with a bond rep for that, the bond that Anchor had, it was estimated that that each of the claimants were going to receive approximately $43 as a payout. So, it's great that there is a bond requirement, but there has to be something in addition to for these prime contractors getting in contract with multi-million dollars worth of work and hiring subcontractors to do the work. Make it to where it's audited, similar to like general liability. As a contractor, general liability is audited on our end, and we have to provide financial records, tax returns, and such things like that to prove how much our exposure is when it comes to general liability, and then our premiums go up or down based on the amount of exposure. This has to happen similarly to the bond, to where the contractor is actually
your time is up.
Is based on their exposure.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I know registrar folks taking notes on that, and we will look into that. Thank you. Anyone else on WebEx?
We have Katie Lucas. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. One note that I wanted to add in about complaints to the CSLB on behalf of Anchor Tiny Homes was previously you could not find a complaint about Anchor Tiny Homes on the CSLB. And a big part of that was they were paying their customers off, whether it was trips to Disneyland or paying them in a lump sum. They offered me $19,000 to remove my complaint from the CSLB and from the bond company. And my problem with that is when you file a complaint with the CSLB, part of the process is for us to negotiate some term of agreement. Well, part of that term of agreement could be them giving you money and then you removing your complaint from the CSLB. My problem with that is that removing your complaint from the CSLB, it takes away so much from consumers because that company was still a problem. And even though they were paying individuals and writing them off, they were still getting new customers and creating the same problem. Had there been some type of a liability where those complaints are left on there, or at least saying there was a complaint about this company, but it was taken care of, some form of evidence that there was a complaint on them, I think we would not be in the situation we are in today, because many people would see that and not hire that company. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you for that. Do we have anyone else on WebEx?
We do not have any more public comments on WebEx.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to go back to the audience if anyone does want to speak.
Thank you very much. I feel very vocal today. I don't think we've had an opportunity to thank CSLB for the work that you've done. The Scam by Anchor Tiny Homes group was created on July 19th, and we are here today. I have worked in state government for almost 20 years for a large agency, and spent a little bit of time in fraud detection and fraud prevention. Spent a little bit of time developing applications for fraud referral, and I know it's very important for our constituents to be able to get that information across when there's a lot of bureaucratic tape. And so I believe you guys have taken an extreme look at this. I know that you've pulled resources out and to come back to investigations, and I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to say that as you were speaking about administrative protection and what the board can do, there are a couple things I think that are important. The first is there's a lot of people experiencing bottlenecks right now in permit processing. There's a lot of, even though that is in the jurisdictions of the counties and the cities, there's a third-party company called Permit Flow, which is a coordinator, which was a third-party company that was hired by Anchor Tiny Homes, unbeknownst to the folks here, that was handling the permit process for their ADU. The consumer had paid, and the contractor did not pay them, and now they're holding their permits hostage, essentially, in some counties and cities. And so in addition to the financial burden, they're also not able to move forward. And so some type of memorandum that would kind of help to say, can we take those permits and put them back in the homeowners' names, and so they can find a general contractor who is worthy of that project and move forward, would be very helpful. Another thing I think that would be helpful is CSLB's website showed a maximum of 10 complaints that were being filed. When we talked to an investigator, someone had said there were over 200 complaints that they had received, and they are frantically working these cases as fast as they can. I don't think it would make sense to post all 200 of those complaints online, but it would be helpful for our ADAs and our Office of Attorney General who's listening in to know that there's been that many complaints that are coming forward. And this is on behalf of 450 plus customers, 57 employees, dozens of contractors, and over 100 franchise owners that span 26 states. We're talking 30 million and growing. This is a Ponzi scheme. This is not contractor fraud. There's so much more involved here. If we can show those complaints online to at least say, we have 249 complaints that we're currently working through, I think that says a lot to our local DA's offices. And lastly, I think that we can do a lot more to hold hands with other state agencies, including the Secretary of State and the Franchise Tax Board. If we have a means to file fraud, can we hold hands with those other agencies and not only look at redacting or revoking their contractor's license, but also how that should impede their business license moving forward? That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I've spoken to a lot of you already. My name is Jan Kaufman. I just wanted to say thank you again to all of you for putting this meeting together for all of us. And I especially want to thank Andrea, there you are, and Katie, who put together the Scam by Anchor Tiny Homes. They have all kinds of how-tos, how to work with the DA, how to, reaching out to an attorney, how to work with the licensing bureau. And they have been such a wealth of information that has helped all of us. We all came in this blind, and now our 2020 vision is starting to come back. We're starting to learn what to do. So I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of me and everybody else too.
Thank you so much.
Good day. My name is Catherine Peoples. I'm the Executive Director of HPP Cares. We are a 501c3 nonprofit down in Southern California that has and is administrating many of the Cal HAFA ADU grant funds for the state. We were the organization that went viral. With that said, we are HUD approved, and we are managing quite a few projects, anywhere from 2,500 to almost 2,800 projects throughout the state of California. We've done the work of outreach, underwriting, and we offer a managed escrow. Some of the victims that are in this room, as well as other organizations that were mentioned during the call today, Multitasker included, as well as ADU Works, which those are going to be coming down the pike as well, our organization has and been made aware of. We've thus put in the complaints. We've been supporting the families in various aspects. I'm here today to tell you that we caught and knew about Anchor Tiny Homes, and we're trying to put the lights out with all of our clients, letting them know, hey, don't make payments to these companies. We didn't lose grant funds, but only for 3 of the families, and it's because of our team at HPP Cares, our fund control, and our management of our program. We are doing an amazing job. So if you are looking for a solution for managed escrow, we are the organization to do it. We've been through it. We've seen the loopholes. We've figured out how to monitor and manage construction companies and mom and pop organizations that are doing this and victimizing families. So we are the solution. HPP Cares is here on the scene to provide the education, to provide the verification of licensing, and to do the management of funds. Someone mentioned earlier that it's 8% or it's, thousands of dollars to do that. Our organization takes on a nominal charge, very small, and we do the work of managing, releasing the funds expeditiously, as long as everything checks out, as well as we do the necessary inspections. So you basically have the solution here in Southern California to do what needs to be done to protect all the families that are here. Unfortunately, we just weren't taking care of their projects because they weren't participants in the California ADU grant program. That's my comments.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Gabriella with HPP Cares. As a HUD housing counselor at HPP Cares, we always focus on educating homeowners on buying and retaining their homes. We've seen incredible success in programs like the Cal HAFA ADU grant, helping people access those vital funds. But what we're not seeing enough of is education for homeowners on the actual construction process itself. There's a gap in the system. Homeowners may know how to access grants and loans, but they don't know how to manage the complexities of construction. They need to understand key information like average construction costs, realistic project timelines, payment phases, bonds, managed escrow, and the roles of subcontractors. Basic knowledge of these topics can help the homeowners make informed decisions and avoid the common mistakes during the projects, both in ADU construction and in home improvements. We believe in expanding the education efforts to include more support for these homeowners who are navigating construction. We believe that a well-informed homeowner won't just be better prepared financially for these projects, but they'll also be able to complete these projects with less stress. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience? All right, with that, I would like to thank the committee members and public for sharing their thoughtful feedback today. Committee members and CSLB staff will further research and vet ideas and submit feasible concepts to the full board for consideration at a future meeting. The board will then determine which ideas might be crafted into legislative proposals. On behalf of CSLB, we appreciate the public's input today and will continue to ensure future opportunities for the public to participate in this process. John, would you like to make a statement?
Sure. I just wanted to emphasize before the meeting ends that public education is why we're here today. Public protection is what CSLB does, and we can't do it without the public. So I think it's been emphasized before, but it can't be overemphasized that CSLB can't act without honest, hardworking homeowners and other complainants coming to CSLB and bringing these things to the attention of CSLB. So now we can get ideas to further educate the public so we can weed out some of the bad actors. And I just wanted to clarify for, I think it was Amy and Douglas and some others who were talking about financial injury. CSLB is a statutory creature that is providing, to the best of its ability, construction workers with to minimum standards, and we rely on the public to make sure and administratively discipline them if they're bad actors. The idea of, we've heard a lot about financial harm, and I know there's people that said it's tough to find lawyers to help them with that, but it has to be somewhere other than CSLB because we are not tasked and don't have the ability to collect for folks that are harmed like you. So I just want to let you know that we're here as a sounding board, as a committee, and we are taking everything to heart that's been provided to us, and it will get to the board's attention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Cobos. Do I have a second? Second. Second, any opposed to the motion to adjourn? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you again for attending.